Welcome everyone to this month's Affinity and Identity Meetings workshop. We're so happy to have everyone here. We are going to go ahead and get started with our inclusion statement, with the Recovery Dharma Global Inclusion Statement. And if somebody wouldn't mind, I'm not sure if we are allowing folks to unmute and participate right now, or if we could get somebody to come in. All right, Glenn, sounds great. Come on in.
Hi, everybody. The Recovery Dharma Global Inclusion Statement. We dedicate this workshop to the Asian ancestors who protected and freely offered the Buddha's teaching to all. Buddhism originated in India and later flourished in other regions of Asia. We express deep gratitude to the cultural heritage that our program is founded on. We recognize and appreciate that many of our meetings are held on ancestral indigenous ground that were never ceded. We honor those who have committed to the ongoing stewardship of this land. Likewise, we honor the communities of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, recognizing the systemic oppression and marginalization that members of these communities may have experienced in the world and in recovery spaces. We dedicate our practice to fostering collective healing and liberation from all oppressions, the tormenting cycle of addiction and suffering as one human race. We wholeheartedly embrace all those who wish to pursue recovery as part of our community, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, disability, or nationality. With all of the joy and sadness, skillfulness and imperfection, striving and resting, grasping and letting go that arises on this path of healing and growth, we honor all those who have walked the grateful road of recovery in the past, present, and those who will carry on this practice in the future.
I keep on forgetting to unmute myself. Thank you very much, Glenn. I'd like to get into some quick introductions before we get into our content, and we do have quite a bit of great content today. Like I said, I am Jenny. I work with Recovery Dharma Global Events and Communications. I'm on the board of directors and very happy to be here today. I am not sure how we'll go about the introductions, but I will invite folks to not only introduce yourself, but if you would like to maybe have a statement of intention, a sentence or two of why you're here today. I didn't tell you this would be coming up, so no worries if that's, I hate being put on the spot, so I realize I just did an awful thing to everyone, but I will give my statement of intentions today is to just help grow and build this community and to help create space. And I really mean that in a lot of different ways, right? Just not only these safe and protected spaces that we are creating, but I think space internally, externally, to be able to co-create these spaces, to have understanding with each other, to open our hearts and minds to maybe ideas that may be challenging to us. Who knows what may come up, but I just invite everyone to create some space, however you can today for this conversation. Thank you. And I would really like to, let's kick it over to Joel as our board president and also the chair of the events committee.
Hey everyone, I'm Joel. Pronouns are he, him. I'm currently serving as the president of the board of directors, but more importantly, I am the events chair, and I also kind of go a little bit everywhere in all the committees. So work closely a lot with communications and outreach. My intention for today is to be really present and absorb all of the wonderful information we're about to hear.
Thanks, Joel. Yeah, I guess I forgot my pronouns are she, her. Thank you. So there's so many other people in this room. I'm not sure what order to go in, but we've got people from the events committee here. We've got people from other committees here. May I just invite you all to come in as you see fit?
Hi, this is JP, she, they. I'm in New York City. Um, I serve on several RDG committees, including events, idea, um, communications, and outreach. And my intention today is to be supportive of this town hall, um, most especially because I believe that affinity spaces are essential to a healthy community. It's a safe place for, um, people who don't necessarily feel safe in, in all of the rooms. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Mikey. I'm on the outreach and events committees. I have been involved in Recovery Dharma for about 2 years now. I use they, them pronouns. I'm in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, and my intention for today is to help others find their spaces where they can feel like they belong because that's what I found in Recovery Dharma. Thank you.
Hi, I am Marion. I'm from a far western suburb of Chicago, which is the ancestral land of the Council of Three Fires, which includes Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi, and a few others actually. My pronouns are she, her. My intention is to be present and open to learning new things and to be supportive of all. I've been on the events committee since the beginning of RD. That I joined with the split, and yeah, I've been with Joel on that beginning times, and I'm part of the Recovery Dharma online community and on their stewardship team. Glad to be here.
Hello, my name is Christine. My pronouns are she, her. I am on the events committee and the idea committee. It's so great to be here with everyone and Sangha today. My intention for being here in this meeting is to allow there to be a space for community and openness, compassion, honesty, and inclusion for all. And working in the background here in Zoom. If you have any questions, please feel free to DM me.
Thanks so much. And other than that, I see JC from the offense committee, and that is, if you would like to come in, you are certainly welcome to come in.
Yeah, hi friends. I am JC, Events Committee. Um, I am he, him pronouns. I'm here with a couple of hats on. One as the organizer of the Charlotte, North Carolina Intersangha. I'm interested in bringing identity and affinity meeting to our area. Also, I'm going to be organizing the May workshop on growing and financial health of Sanghas. So I wanted to get dialed into this community and see the structure. So thanks for letting me do that.
Thanks so much, JC.
Hi. Oh, I was going to jump in. My name's Thomas. Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all. I use any pronouns. I'm from the indigenous lands of the Ohlone people, which is in San Jose, California right now. I'm gonna say I come here today with kind of the experiences of having been a co-founder of the Men's True Intimacy Sanghas, the RD Heart Practices founder, and the most importantly the co-founder for RD BIPOC at a time when I didn't know I was BIPOC. So it's really interesting. Thanks.
I can relate to that last statement, Thomas. Thank you so much. And then we also have two other very honored speakers here with us today. Yuri Shinyeri, I don't know if you'd prefer to come in now or
I can pop in really quick. Hi, everybody. It's Shaniri. I am zooming in from the land of the Potawatomi and Menominee people, also known as Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I use pronouns she and her. My intention for today is just to share my experience with Affinity meetings and how much growth I've had in those spaces and how I've been able to even land in non-affinity meetings a little different with that type of support in the background. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when it's my turn, but good to be here with you guys.
Hi, I'm Yuri. I am from the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe. I just recently learned I've been saying that wrong the entire time. So, also known as South Lyon, Michigan, near Ann Arbor. And my intention is to speak about why these spaces are important and how they have impacted me and helped me through my recovery. And I just hope, and I am very grateful and thankful for the space. And I will do service any way possible because I believe in this program. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And folks, we will start off with just a short silent sit together. I think, let's see, in the interest of just moving the event along, we will keep it down to, let's do 4 minutes together. We'll do a 4-minute sit. And I'm going to ring us in. Thanks, everyone. I left my sound on because there were all kinds of birds around my house, and I was like, maybe it'll come through. I don't know. We'll hop right into our content here. I super did not want to be the one necessarily. I'm like, I need somebody who can address this subject much more gracefully than I can and more eloquently. So we did tag in Thomas T, of who many of you are familiar with, to come and introduce Affinity and Identity Meetings, kind of what they are, what their importance, and some experience. So Thomas, please take it away.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks, Jenny. So, yeah, my name is Thomas, any pronouns again. So, I think one of the questions that happens a lot is what types of different affinity meetings are there? And like there's kind of like sometimes that's a mystery. I would say the way that RD has sorted them on the meeting list, we have basically 3 different types of affinity meetings. They can be a format meeting, so like something that just is based on having topics around like, wait, I'm confused actually. Okay, let me start again. So there are identity meetings, which are for safe spaces created for certain identities. So, for example, women, men, LGBTQIA, and BIPOC. There are language affinity meetings. We actually have Dutch and German and Spanish and ASL. And then there's the topic affinity meetings where I went through the list of the meetings, and what I've come up with is we have beginners meetings, codependency meetings, family and friends meetings, healthcare professional meetings, heart practices meetings, inquiry meetings, love and sex meetings, mental health, mindful eating, mindful movement, and qigong, neurodiversity, and more that probably aren't labeled. And so what I have found in my, I've been in recovery for 17 years now, and what I've found in my recovery is that when there's a certain topic meeting, there's like a much more focused view on something that I need to work on. Especially, so I've worked on my substance use, and then I've worked on process addiction programs where everything is kind of, for me, I went to like Sex Addicts Anonymous, where I was hearing other men talk about things that I thought I would never hear, and I thought I would go to my grave never sharing. And it was absolutely critical and important in order to be able to share my voice and share my experience and share my traumas with other people who got it. I'll never forget it. And the way that the process addictions affinity groups would open up this whole new type of healing and kind of plan for healing. So I think, many of us are substance addicts, and it's very common for what is sobriety to be handed to you. We're basically told, okay, your sobriety is going to be stop using all substances, and that's it. Whereas in a process addiction setting, it's really hard to we have to define for ourselves, and we're told to define for ourselves what sobriety means. And so that's kind of like, okay, in codependency, what is codependency? What is like, what do I abstain from kind of first? What's most harmful to me? And so it's kind of a whole new way of looking at recovery, where it's possible to have healing in steps and stages. So I think I'm just going to kind of start off with sharing why some certain identity meetings are needed to have safe spaces. So especially for men, right? It's really counterintuitive. It's like, well, in professional settings, most people are, most meeting spaces would be started by and created for men, basically, because that's their experience. But I have found in my recovery and my experience of attending men's meetings that, in different programs even, that the men's meetings served as a vulnerability sanctuary for me. And I list a few examples here. Men are able to drop their masks. They can stop performing the strength and admit to being human, which helps like lower stress for men trying to look and control all things at all times. For me, I found I could access the heart better, that I could access the heart practices better. So men can dismantle our societal armor, if you will, because we see other people modeling an openness. And so like I've kind of learned the true strength of just being with my feelings and finally having access to these deep, heartfelt emotions and grief in a way that I didn't experience in other spaces. Another one for me personally is like kind of like love and sex addiction. Men with these kinds of addictions have historically felt very worried for offending or reactivating trauma in women, and so there's a common place where men can feel more free to speak freely with no one kind of needing explanations. And really it's not about being exclusionary, it's just about providing a space that helps deepen my recovery. Yeah. And then I'll mention why might women need safe spaces. And I'm just going to go ahead and take a minute to open the chat if anyone would like to drop in any reasons they feel. Oh, we're getting a lot of chat. Oh, never mind. Well, I can go ahead and list what I've kind of written down. So I think there are more like obvious reasons, kind of like, well, women sometimes have been had trauma at the hands of men, and it would feel much safer not to be able to, not to have to kind of be hypervigilant about that. There's also some really like socially complex reasons. For example, dropping the fix-it or mom role. Most women are used to being like the emotional shock absorbers for everyone else. And then these groups, they can finally stop worrying and about making others feel comfortable and just focus on themselves. I mentioned hypervigilance. There's being able to turn off the hypervigilance radar. So in mixed groups, there's often a subconscious hypervigilance about how women can look or sound to men, and they can finally stop worrying about that and kind of let their guard down for another place where they don't have to perform. And again, it's not about being exclusionary, it's about deeper recovery and healing for women. And jumping into LGBTQIA. So why might LGBTQIA plus community need safe spaces? It's mostly about moving from a survival mode to an authentic healing space. There's this reason of emotional labor. Kind of members don't have to explain to non-identifying people what the procedures are in life or the differences, or kind of explaining pronouns and focus entirely on their recovery and also feeling deeply seen. There's healing from social and religious traumas for queer people, and there's kind of this sense of like being able to find a chosen family rather than the family of origin for those who've lost family support due to their identity. Yeah, because there's often a feeling of unconditional belonging. I've attended lots of LGBTQIA meetings myself. I'll also mention there are gender expansive meetings where it's even more specified for genderqueer people. And then comes to BIPOC. What about BIPOC? In my experience, I became what I call as an accidental co-founder of RD BIPOC 6 years ago. I was asked to help BIPOC start their meetings, and I just kind of thought, oh, they're sending me because I'm the Asian IT guy. All right, I'll check it out. And I did, and I had no idea how much I would need it. I thought I was totally fine in general meetings, but I was able to see more people that looked like me. I was able to kind of talk about the things in my life, like this model minority myth that Asians have to kind of play. There's a validation of racial trauma about things in my life that I never really could put a name on, but when I heard other people explain it, like I started to say, oh, this really resonates with me. Being called names and just experiencing life, knowing that there was a general feeling of being less than. I've experienced like microaggressions where people will sort of ask me like, hey, so where are you from? And then they'll say, oh no, where are you really from? You know what I mean? And I'm like, I was born in Chicago, dude. So yeah, and then I think one of the most deepest for me is I didn't know that I would be able to find intergenerational karmic healing from this in ways where, my grandfather was jailed in concentration camps in Vietnam, and this was an extremely shameful experience for him. And since then, I've experienced that shame, and I didn't realize that it was really my grandfather's own shame about that. I think he was feeling most bad about not protecting his family. And so I've been able to get to that, and many of us have been able to get to more deeper healing in terms of generational karma. And I think it's really important to also, remind everyone it's not about an exclusionary process. This is about deeper healing for the ones who really need that. And that's all I want to speak on for now. I hope that helped anyone.
Really great. It was really great, Thomas. I personally really appreciated that. And I will say that one of the words that you used to describe a lot of these spaces that I think is really, really important, highlights a really important concept is the idea of having to perform and having a space where people do not have to perform for other people. We encounter a difficult question pretty often specifically about allyship and exclusionary spaces, and why we ask allies to respect protected spaces even if they are not exclusionary. And that is the reason, without realizing it, a lot of people, you may not realize, right? I don't know what I mean by you, but people may not realize how other people around them are feeling pressure to perform in different ways based on life experiences, and to have a space where we can all do it, where anybody can put down all those performances and really deal with their own issues is critical. And as Thomas was saying, and as I'm sure other people will say, I did not even realize I needed that space until I found it, because I had grown up in a space, trying to assimilate, trying to adapt, right? So anyway, moving forward, we have an awesome speaker panel. Thomas, if you'd like to stay on, that'd be awesome. And Mikey, Yuri, Shinyere, I invite you to come in and maybe just introduce yourselves for a bit. Take as long as you've been around, I'd say up to 10 minutes. So, but to introduce yourself. And I don't know, if we'd want to go by topic order or anything. Rock, paper, scissors. Mikey, do you want to come in since you're a member of the committee?
Yeah, I'll step in. Again, my name is Mikey. I use they them pronouns. On the ancestral lands of the Susquehannock. I participate mostly in mental health spaces. I have been present in LGBTQIA spaces as a non binary queer person, and I have attended the codependency meeting on Sundays for most of the 2 years I've been coming to RD meetings. These spaces have helped me in really profound ways. I didn't even know that I was codependent until I started attending the codependency meeting. And it was like, oh, so that's what this is. And it's really helped me to feel like I don't have to grasp onto control or like try to keep or fix anybody else around me because that's part of my process addiction. And not having boundaries has been a huge part of my addiction and my recovery. So, having these spaces available to me, the few LGBTQIA meetings that I attended really helped me to feel more secure in my gender identity because that was pretty shaky for me. I'm somebody that didn't come out until my late 30s. So, in the mental health affinity meetings, I now host two of those a week on Mondays and Fridays. It's a space where I've been able to talk about how my mental health has affected my ability to recover, how I'm dealing with my mental health, the treatments that I've been going through, the therapies that I attend, the ways that I can take care of myself. And it's really it's a place where I know I'm not going to be judged and I'm not going to be the crazy person because I'm not crazy. I mean a little bit, but I'm just a person that has mental illness and it's not anything I have to identify with. So yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yuri. I am from, well, I already said I'm from Ann Arbor area in Michigan, also known as the land of the Anishinaabe. And I just, my journey's a little bit different, like everybody else's. I came up from a different program. I spent 2 years there, and I cannot tell you the difference of coming from that because I was an in-person person. And my very first meeting, I walked in to a church, which I do not affiliate with, uh, uh, somewhat welcoming church in itself, but then I walk in and there's like 50 strangers staring at me as I sit in this tiny chair. And I'm about to open up and I have no idea because I identify to a couple of those categories that belong in these affinity groups for different reasons. LGBT or the alphabet soup, as I like to call it. I'm from the 1900s, so affinity and things like that were a little different when I first came out. When I was 17 and 18, you did it. You kind of just told your friends. You kind of told a friend that was gay first, and then kind of tested the waters. And that's kind of like going into those meetings, not knowing, being in a religious institute and not knowing if I was going to be accepted for who I am, altering my stories to better fit the environment that I was in, saying, oh, my spouse, not giving any definition other than that, So when I started to come to RD, I actually attended a in-person meeting first, and I went to the temple, and then right after the temple service was RD, and I didn't even know it existed. I had gone to the temple for years, and I didn't, and before I even got sober, I didn't even know that was a thing. And then I had stepped away from the temple for a little bit because I always felt peaceful there. I always felt drawn to the Buddhist religion, just how zen and calming it was. And I felt very safe in that energy and space with everybody practicing, even though myself, I was not a practicing Buddhist, but I knew enough to respect. And when I found RD, it was like it blew my mind. I didn't even know it existed. I started, like I said, in person, and then they mentioned online, and then I went in and I saw all these different groups that I could attend. And the first group that I attended was actually No Mud, No Lotus, and it was because of the name, the familiarity, right? I'm a big person of familiarity, so I saw it. I was like, oh, I read that Thich Nhat Hanh book before. It was like I saw it as a calling. I'm a big fan of the word serendipity, so it was like, oh, that's where my very first meeting happened in February of 2022 was when I first attended my first RD meeting. And then from there, I started to venture and see the three jewels, all the different meetings, the codependency meetings I recently started attending. I didn't know. And even while sitting in this meeting, I realized that there's another part of the affinity groups that I'm not utilizing that I could benefit from, and that's probably the Spanish meeting. I'm Mexican. I speak fluent Spanish. I was born in Mexico, and I'm going through some difficult times right now with the whole ICE immigration, some random person showing up at my house, and I feel like nobody understands what that's like. I mean, people can sympathize and empathize with it, right? But like the fact that I can't go outside my house because I can't confirm if this was ICE or not that showed up at my door. And while sitting in this meeting, I was like, I wonder if I should attend one of those Spanish meetings because they probably have experiences with that. And I have not even thought about utilizing that affinity space for something that I'm going through right now. So as I was sitting here, I was like, you know what? I better go look at those Spanish meetings to see if maybe there's some benefit because I'm 4 years sober now. I just recently celebrated a couple weeks ago, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't through all those steps that I took that led me here. If I wouldn't have continued to look for these spaces, if I didn't know these spaces existed, right? Like I just kind of stumbled upon them. And then when I did, I've been in recovery Dharma now for, over 2 years. And it's calmed my mind so much. I don't have to worry when I attend these meetings about altering my story, changing who I am, wondering if someone's going to care. I would go to the other meetings, and I'm so grateful I was there for 2 years. I got through the cravings, through that with them. But this has helped me put my mind at ease in spaces that I feel welcome. If a space doesn't feel the right fit for me, I can attend another one because there's so many different versions of meetings. And I'm still a big believer, even now, 2 years later, I still keep my diaries of my meetings, what I like about them, what I did it, what resonated. And I still do that. And I'm going to do that with these Spanish meetings to see if I can find a community in there that might help me with what I'm going through right now because it's really impacting me more than I think I realize. Um, and so I'm just very thankful for all the space and not only the affinity spaces, but the people themselves, like I've met so many people. I have friends in Puerto Rico, I have friends in Minnesota, I have friends in Pennsylvania. I mean, UK, and it's because of this program. It's the like-minded people, Netherlands, and it's like I would have never met these people. We wouldn't have found out that we had community and support to help us, and if it wasn't for these spaces specifically that we attend, we may not have that background. And I'm sure, I hope that there are people listening who also, like me, is like, oh, I never heard about those. I did, I struggle with eating. Maybe I should attend this, like same thing. And maybe you find other things. And one of the things that I recently was told, and I think it goes to how comfortable I feel, was somebody uh, told me, they're like, you're always so raw about your shares. You share everything. And the thing is, it's because like, I'm comfortable. Like, this is the one space when I don't have to mask and I can actually say what is going on, what I feel, what my emotions are, because whether you've been through the same thing or not, you guys can relate. I'm a big believer. I always say it too, is we're all in the ocean of addiction. We're just on different boats trying to get to safe harbors, wherever those may be, and I think this is a great community that lends that. We've had some issues in some of the Sanghas, and there's been such great support to try to ratify and keep these spaces safe and people, I don't know, people just care, right? They care. And that is a big difference. And you can tell whenever you attend these different meetings, people, rally behind each other. And that's why these spaces are important. And that's why I'm a big believer. And when I was asked to speak, I was like, absolutely. I mean, I can talk all day, as you guys can tell. But no, so I'm just thankful for the space. And it's been such a great space for me. And I hope others, if anyone has any questions, I'll drop my info. But thank you for so much for everyone that worked so hard for this.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you, Mikey. Thank you, Yuri. Thank you, everybody behind the scenes is working to keep us all safe here on Recovery Dharma and provide these opportunities for us. Totally life changing. My name is Shanieri again, pronoun she, her, here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'll touch a little bit on my history with RD. I think I'm coming up on a little over 4 years coming to meetings. I too started off in just, really the first meeting I could find. What time is it? Let me log on to this one. So D&D is kind of like my home meeting. I'm there pretty much every day. And I don't know, over the 4 years, I've learned so much. There's been so many teachers through the different meditators that we listen to, through all the different modalities of like mental health and DBT, IFS, all the different things that I learned, all those things coming here to Recovery Dharma. So while it started out, of course, trying to get away from the bottle, it turned into, you know, a full 4 years of like self-discovery and self-acceptance. And of course, well, to me, recovery and healing and self-awareness and self-discovery and self-acceptance are synonymous to me, because it took me to actually do the work to get sober. I had to actually start to love myself. I had to actually start to see value in myself. And the more work I did, the more substances became less and less until they were no more, because I didn't have the need for them. The safety they were giving me, I was able to find within myself. And that happened for me coming to these meetings, obviously. Um, I attend a couple different, I have notes here, so because I want to stay on track. I attend a couple different affinity meetings. I like the topic meetings, so I do like the IFS sometimes on Fridays, and mental health. And I actually found the BIPOC meetings probably like 2 years in to Recovery Dharma. And they did, I attend that. That's a regular meeting for me too. I do that every Sunday. I would consider that a home group too. Um, I actually look at Recovery Dharma as an affinity meeting within itself, because there's so many different modalities that humans can use to heal their suffering, right? Because even if addiction or substances isn't part of your suffering, probably name 5 other things that are, right? And so I have a lot of people in my life who are not even their addiction is not their substance, but they're suffering just as much. And so I find that sometimes even people who quote unquote can drink healthy or use in a way that is not like what brought me into the meeting, like I'm gonna die if I don't continue, if I continue this. Even people who just use things socially, a lot of times there's still something inside of them that they're reaching for, and that's why they may go out and drink on the weekends or whatever. So I just find that we find ourselves in this recovery dharma space almost as an affinity outside the rest of humanity, right? Because this was our thing, and so this is where a lot of us have kind of like found our healing. Of course, it's sobriety from substances had to come first for me. But what's happened beyond that is so much bigger than substances. In fact, I'm almost grateful for the substances, because I may not have done all this self work and started looking for myself and healing myself had I not had those, fallen off those bikes so many times, basically. And so I'll touch mostly on BIPOC because that's probably the one that I attend the most. Uh, and like so many people said here, it does offer a way to be seen where you don't feel like you have to perform, or you can say certain things about race that automatically are pretty much understood. A deeper honesty about racial trauma, support with racial trauma. I think a lot of times in affinity groups, there's like a layered experience. And so everyone can kind of understand where you're coming from already. That offers you a little bit more safety. Um, I do sometimes in BIPOC wish that allies of BIPOC that are not part of the group could sit in some of those meetings, because I think it might richen the awareness, and create even more racial harmony. I know why that doesn't happen, because you never know if it is safe or not, right? But I've been in those meetings a lot of times, and I'm like, dang, I wish that share could have been in D&D. You know what I mean? So the world can kind of hear how people from different backgrounds and different races relate to racism, right? I didn't think I had racial trauma until my mid 40s, because I grew up in a predominantly Black middle class environment, like the Washington, D.C. area. It wasn't until I moved to Wisconsin, where I'm like the only Black person in most spaces that I go into, that I started realizing, like, oh, this is what racism is. And it really makes me uncomfortable. And then I found, through being in this community for a long time, that a lot of people who don't identify as BIPOC, a lot of people that I meet, most of the people that I meet that practice racism are practicing it really like out of ignorance, not out of a true deep ingrained hate, right? It's not that they really hate this, Black people or whatever. It's that there's just a lack of understanding. Sometimes the media perpetuates a stereotype that isn't realistic. And so I have found that when people see me like being a regular in restaurants in my community, or I work and live in my community, so it's like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, where everybody kind of knows everybody. And I'm like the Black lady with the hair salon on the corner. And I think that because I have so many friends and I'm on a first name basis with so many people who don't look like me, once they actually got to know me and I got to know them, I realized that, you know, it's really just fear, not understanding one another. This comes up in BIPOC too, because non-white people can also be prejudiced, right? And sometimes we are hyper vigilant. I think sometimes um, we're always in flight or fight, because we're scanning for racism. And I've learned that sometimes when I'm scanning for it, it's not even there, right? It's just a program that I've taught, being an American and being subjected to inequality. And so I'm grateful for those spaces for that reason. I often do try to encourage, because I see a lot of people in BIPOC meetings I don't see in any other RD meetings. And I've shared many times in there, I'd like to see some of your faces in other meetings where everyone is, so that everyone can start to get a little piece of what we're sharing here. I think it brings in a much greater racial inclusion, right? Because I think it's important for BIPOC people to also let down that shield in spaces where everybody is, right? And feel like, even though this person doesn't look like me, we're identifying so much more than you even imagine. And I have been respected, held, loved, supported just as much by non-BIPOC people as I have BIPOC people. And so I just think, for a greater balance in the world, like, it'd be great for us to drop some of those misnomers and misunderstandings. And it does start sometimes with being a little uncomfortable, and sharing your truth in a space where you're worried that this person might not quite see you fully or understand. And that's also one of the reasons that I'll go to like some of the other affinity meetings that allow, like, I'm a supporter of LGBTQ. I don't consider myself a part of that community, but I heavily support them. And there are meetings that are open to everyone. And I attend those meetings. And what I learn from those meetings is so much more richness and depth in their understanding, that it grows like a greater sense of love and value for that community. And so, yeah, so much support for Recovery Dharma. Um, so much support for the safety that is in these individual groups. But I'd like to spin it by, reiterating that I can't speak for all of them. Of course, like, the men's groups and specifically the women's groups. But I hope that there is room in the broader meetings for some of those topics to be touched on in a way that brings a greater understanding to people who may not necessarily be in those groups. I think it makes the meetings much richer. Sorry, someone's calling me. I think it makes the meetings much richer. I think it fosters understanding, and I think it strengthens humanity. But of course, without these affinity groups, for us to be able to feel safe, I think that definitely had to come first, right? I had to be in BIPOC meetings and feel safe enough to talk about my Blackness in any space that I'm in. Whenever I do talk about race in broad meetings, I feel like I have to give a trigger warning, trigger warning, ready to talk about race. That doesn't happen so much in BIPOC meetings, but yeah, I have a great deal of appreciation for the BIPOC meetings and all the affinity meetings, because again, that's where we first land in order to be able to take those feelings and experiences into broader spaces. And so I think that's all I got. Yeah, thanks for listening.
Just amazing from all our panelists. Thank you so much. Covering just I'm sorry, I'm like a little speechless right now. I'm also a little emotional, you guys. Like to be fair, like this is obviously a subject that does hit me also personally. So I'm actually just going to, instead of trying to talk, I'm going to say that we are we're almost like perfectly on time. We are doing great, and so I'd like to move into some Q&A and sharing. Folks, we are keeping the room muted. It's going to be like sort of like more normal meeting space where we're inviting folks to raise their hand, and we'll unmute you for respectful questions to our panelists and or personal sharing on your experiences around this. Glenn, inviting you in.
Can you hear me? Awesome. Firstly, thank you to the panelists and thank you for everybody being here. I just wanted to share something, and I really don't know what affinity group this is going to fall in, but and I'm going to try and contain my emotions here because this is a big one for me. So I know that a lot of us, and I speak for myself, has dealt with religious trauma. I call it religious trauma because it's religious abuse, technically, as a child. Our Sangha members with specific culture and religious extremism, I call it, most of us have somehow been affected by that in early childhood. I have been affected by that. It's not just for lesbian or gay, but it made it harder for me as a gay man to be accepted by what we call the Christian groups when I was brought up. And I'd like to maybe see some trauma-based groups where people have suffered as children, where they have been put into shame, a lot of guilt, and a lot of trauma early in their childhood, even before preschool, where that almost determined the rest of their childhood and early adult life into what they felt their identity was and where they were able to fit in the world. And I just want to read something out. Religious family trauma and family religious fear-based upbringing and false doctrine programs, childhood and children forced into religious trauma and shame, especially as a gay man. And how do we navigate this in recovery in a loving, kind, and respectful manner while creating healthy boundaries for our family? Certain branches of Christianity, for example, and only one example, fundamentalist groups teaching may emphasize sinfulness and unworthiness, fear of punishment and hell, guilt around sexuality and impure thoughts. I just wanted to open that up because I think that the majority of us have been exposed to some religious trauma, and it's not really spoken about a lot. And I feel there may be where we could bring that without any shame or blame. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Glenn. So we are getting questions through chat as well. So we're going to alternate. For fairness, we're going to hop. This next one's a quick one, Jan, and then I'll be right back to you. Our first question is, how do we join different groups? Is there a website or list with times and links? So the Affinity group meetings, you can filter our meeting, the Recovery Dharma, the normal meeting directory. If somebody can drop a link to the general meeting directory in the chat real quick. If you actually go to the meeting directory, you can filter it at the top. I unfortunately cannot screen share right now, or I would directly show you. But the meetings can be searched and filtered. And if you go under the any type drop-down list and you scroll down, you will see topic and identity meetings, and they'll list all these different ones that you can check out. And the meeting descriptions themselves will have more details about I guess, access and everything like that. All right, Jan, inviting you in.
I think, am I in?
Yes.
I'm in, aren't I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. Thanks, Jenny, for hosting, and thanks to all the speakers. It's really moving. I really enjoyed listening to you. One thing about affinity groups, I suppose, in a way, is maybe to come with a warning that they're not guaranteed to be safe spaces. I've got wise friends in Recovery Dharma who are trans and who face transphobia in an LGBTQI allies Sangha that I belong to. Thankfully, they have found support in Recovery Dharma gender expansionary meetings. But I was wondering, how do we skillfully tackle unskillful behavior such as transphobia, invariably expressed by white, cisgender, gay men who've made our spaces less safe for our trans members? I've been effectively gagged from raising the issue in the Sangha that I belong to. I'm wondering, are there any tools or outside wise people that we can call upon for help on that issue?
I'd like to invite our panelists. Perhaps Thomas, would you have, since you had mentioned these more expanded spaces, would you have any recommendations on this?
Yeah. Hi, Roger. Thanks for asking that question. It's really pertinent, especially with the climate of transphobia in the world right now. Your question's pretty specific in how do we talk about it? How do you find help and references to learn and be better about being able to speak? And for me, my only answer that I can give that's reliable is I would ask AI. And likely it'll actually give you some pretty decent answers. I do that for all my problems in life these days. Yeah, especially when I just kind of I'm clueless about it. But yeah, I don't know if that helps. I was gonna just actually go ahead and start looking up, asking AI these things.
Thomas, honestly, since you usually have incredibly good responses to lots of things, I'm gonna trust your methodology, and if you find something good, drop it in the chat. I don't know if anyone else has experience with this. For me personally, I just know that in the in the sense that people are endlessly diverse and complicated, that we are always running into different aspects, different versions of these same conversations as we run into different identities and potential barriers to our interactions with each other. And each one has to be negotiated based on context. And it is actually, and for me, it's always hard to come up with a universal, answer for any of these scenarios, which is also not helpful. And I apologize. Sorry, Roger, one moment. I know you've been waiting really patiently. I'm going to hop over to the chat real quick again. Question 2 from the chat. Can people who aren't, oh, Shania, I'm sorry, did you have?
No, I was going to comment on the last.
Oh, please do.
Okay. The only things that came up for me is because I totally understand what you're talking about, possibly being trans in spaces where it is even LGBTQ, but then there's, maybe not support even within that community for a certain part of that community. And I mean, the tough answer is like when you don't see what you need, like make it or put the energy out there to create those spaces. Because again, I think maybe there needs to just be a meeting for people who are trans, especially if they feel like they're dealing with harm from all sides of the spectrum and they're being lumped into a group that they're also not feeling a part of. That might be something that would help. Because again, I think if they have a space to feel safe where they can kind of build some resilience amongst themselves, they can then take that into LGBTQ meetings and share about that. Take that into broader meetings and share about that so that, and start to get some inclusivity in all the spaces. And maybe someone who's totally anti would be able to see a little seed that will open their mind to being more accepting, and so that's my share on that.
Thank you so much, Shania. Yuri.
Also to kind of go what Shaneri said, if you don't, right, there's a quote out there, if you don't be the change you want to see in the world, right? And that's exactly it. Like, there was a need recently where we used to have a meeting. That meeting time became available. It became a need. So a bunch of us, 6 of us, decided that it was important for us to have this at that time for our recovery. So there were 6 of us that came together and started a saga within a week with the help of Jenny, of course. And it was all done so quickly because that space was there. We emailed, we said what our intentions were, why we were doing this. And I've done that. I did this in AA too, in the community where I went to. There was no women's group. It was all men's, and the women didn't have a group. So me and this other woman started a women's group in AA for a Tuesday night. So if you don't see them, I mean, it could just start just with you and you just start and people, sometimes you'll have a bunch of people show, sometimes you'll have 3, but sometimes those 3 that show is like makes a difference in the world. So it's just about bringing the community, finding your 1 or 2 people, and it just kind of grows from there. And that dedication, and like Shaneri said, if you don't see it, become it, and you be the leader of that movement.
Thank you guys so much. And I
I'd
know
help. I'd help if you decide to do that. I'd come.
awesome. I am also getting responses through chat, but I am sorry, folks. We have about 15 minutes left for Q&A, so I do want to get to some other questions. Although thank you guys so much for jumping in with amazing answers. I'm scrolling up. Question 2: Can people who aren't considered BIPOC come to BIPOC meetings to listen and participate? I'm not sure if this is Sangha and meeting dependent. But generally speaking, I think that it is sort of understood and that these are, protected spaces, and allies are generally asked to, be allies by respecting the space. Again, I think some individual sanghas may have, their own rules around it, and I cannot speak for every single one. And again, I invite panelists to let me know from their experience.
One, I'm not sure because I've never really asked that, but one thing you could do is a lot of meetings start a little bit earlier and you can jump in and see if that space allows that, right? As before the meeting starts, before everything gets started, to say, I'm an ally. I was wondering if this is a setting that allows allies, or is it just strictly for, this affinity group, that would be my suggestion, but I don't know.
I'll share really, really quickly. There are about 4 different BIPOC meetings throughout the week. And as it stands right now, it's in the script that if you don't identify, that they ask you to not be there, and to leave. And they will even like make people cut cameras on and stuff. And so it's very strict currently. But again, A BIPOC meeting that has in the verbiage of the meeting that it's open to allies of BIPOC probably is something that's needed within Recovery Dharma. Okay.
Yeah, I would actually be really interested in exploring something like that in my abundant free time. But yes, if a meeting is a topic or affinity, it'll generally tell you on the meeting listing if it is open or closed to other people. Thank you. Roger, inviting you in.
Thank you. I had a specific question which has to some degree been addressed already, which is ideas for skillfully handling things that are outside the protection space of a meeting. And I appreciate, thanks very much to all of the panelists. I appreciate what Jenny said about, yeah, maybe there's not a one size fits all rule. Greet the situation with love and compassion. But, are there principles that we can use to help us find a way through that sometimes tricky situation? Um, and I'm going to take away the notion of of having a meeting that does include allies as well as people within the identity. I think that's a lovely step towards, I mean, there's one Dharma, right? Maybe one of the purposes of a safe space, this is something that I think I've heard, is to find the strength to be able to join the universal Sangha, which ought to be humanity. Um, and so that was a specific, asking for guidance and hints question, and a more like, what do we have a definition of affinity or identity groups? You know, if a group is proposed for, I can imagine all sorts of unskillful groups, but how do we distinguish an identity group from an affinity group from a topic group? Do we have um, procedures and kinds of support that are appropriate for each of the different kinds of groups, if that's even a useful question?
Um, I'm actually not the most experienced in the room to answer this question, and I'm wondering if Joel or Christine might be available to do this better than I can. The strength of leadership, or whatever you call it, when you know that you don't know.
As I understand it, with IDEA, we currently don't have a guidance on that, but I think that is something that would be great to bring to the table and add to the agenda to open further discussions.
I think, yeah, what you see now is the result of a lot of what we see now is the result of a lot of organic community growth. And sort of in the same way that Recovery Dharma doesn't really try to exert so much control over things, we sort of haven't caught up in terms of policy to what the community has done. I really appreciate the earlier point you were raising about some of the broader Buddhist concepts around this. Because I admit too, when I first came to Recovery Dharma, my Buddhist non-duality, but we have, a lot of separate identity and topic groups. How does that work within the concept of Buddhist non-duality? And you expressed it too, creating safe containers to grow. So really appreciate that. Thank you. I don't think I have. Sorry, Glenn, I saw you in the chat. I'm totally going to circle back. Akshaya, inviting you in. Akshaya.
Thank you so much. I joined late, so please forgive me if this was discussed. And I wanted to just share that as a South Asian immigrant to the US and someone who comes from these living traditions, the part of the Recovery Dharma script that honors the ancestors from South Asia and Asia more generally is deeply meaningful to me, and it's why I'm so drawn to recovery Dharma. However, in many meetings, the acknowledgement of our Indian ancestors that freely gave these teachings is often skipped in the interests of time. And I'm wondering, for the founders who wrote that part of the script, how do you feel about that part being skipped? I ask because that section is not a formality for me. It's deeply personal because it pays acknowledgement to the centuries of oppression that people had to carry in order to preserve those teachings. And when that acknowledgement disappears, I feel like it leads to a loss of the roots and an invisibilization of the people who are from these traditions, and ultimately to appropriation. So would love any thoughts or comments on that. Thank you. Bowing out.
Thank you so much. I can just express that I'm very grateful that you are here today and that you have shared what you have shared. I believe I have been in another space with you and heard and was very grateful to hear that expressed as well. So I would say that the reason that statement exists is because the founders of the program and the writers of the book respected the tradition and wanted it to be in every meeting. Unfortunately, as an organization, we can't control what individual meetings do, but the fact that, we have it in our book, we have it in the script, it is definitely encouraged as part of the meeting. Other than that, I would say, again, I'm very grateful that you are here and speaking, courageously and publicly to that, so that people here who are mostly, folks that come to these town halls and workshops are usually people who are committed, very invested in the development of the community. So I'm just very grateful that people had a chance to hear you say that. And thank you very much.
Jenny, is it possible I can circle back to feeling uncomfortable in meetings due to unskillful behavior?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, yes, and then after that, we're going to circle back to Glenn's question as well. Go ahead, Marion.
So, in Recovery Dharma Online, which was an online community way before the pandemics, we started in 2018 actually. Each of our 21 meetings operates autonomously, and if something arises that feels uncomfortable, we always encourage you to bring it to the facilitator of that specific meeting so it can be addressed with care. And it took us a lot to try to figure out, what to do, because we used to get a lot of complaints about a lot of people, about a lot of situations. So we developed safety guidelines to support navigating more challenging situations. And I can put that in the chat, actually, if you would like. And, that's just how we found to deal with difficult situations. But I think this could be something that can be addressed in a larger scale. But again, all our meetings are autonomous, and so each meeting can decide how they want to run. And like others mentioned, be the change you want to see. So if you're not feeling like you have a community that includes you, to start one, try to find at least one or two other people, and then you can have a chat. Small meetings turn into larger meetings. So wish you well in that regard. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Marion. If you wanted to drop that in the chat, that'd be awesome. And then I'll also grab it for when we send out resources for this event. And then Glenn had asked folks, yeah, sorry, Glenn, I did not mean to gloss over your question. I just didn't know if it was if folks had experience with it, but asking if the question about religious trauma, if anyone on the panel had experience around it or suggestions around it. Although I wonder if the answer again may be very similar about creating spaces that we see a need for in the community. Do you mind raising your
Go ahead, Mikey. Go ahead, Mikey. Go for it.
I was just going to say, uh, a few years before I found Recovery Dharma, my partner and I had a meeting center, and I was hosting meetings specifically to talk about trauma. And it wasn't a space for trauma dumping. It was to come and process the things that you had survived and work together as a group on how to get through things. And as somebody that now hosts two mental health meetings, I do believe that there is a need for such a space, and would be willing to work with somebody. I already have a Zoom account to create such a space, so feel free to reach out.
And I mean, I too, I was born in Mexico, raised Catholic. You know, I have religious trauma in the fact that there was a lot of abuse and a lot of horrible things happening to me at such a young age that I would take myself to church, hoping no adults would come with me. I would go myself to church because it was down the street, pray and pray that all this would stop, and it never stopped. Right. So I think I personally, I don't know if I'm really an atheist or not, or if I just have a hang up with religion because I was like, I'm 4 or 5, 10, 15. Like, what else? How many times do I have to pray for my prayers to be answered? Why is God not answering my prayers? And I have a huge problem with like, oh, well, he's just making you stronger. It's like, oh, okay. So I'm 4 or 5 years old going through this, right? So like I do have a lot of that religious trauma, I believe, because of that. I try to get my catechism, everything done like warp speed because I'm one of those. I have to constantly, and yeah, I mean, I would be interested in a group like that. Again, because it's there. I mean, born, raised Catholic, you don't say anything wrong. You know, you got to protect the image of the family and be uh, shown that you're a perfect religious Catholic family following the rules. Meanwhile, everybody's protecting abusers and, you know, not saying things, and you're the bad person in it. So, yeah, there's definitely a need, I would say. And I too would help if I could.
Thank you. Really appreciate that feedback. It was the internalized shame that I've had as a child that I've really struggled to let go of, and what I was led to believe at a very young age, and how that is still part of my thinking and trauma, and it's so hard to let it go, and how I mainly deal with family and how I set healthy boundaries. And that maybe could be some discussion groups that we could talk about so that we can practice wise speech when dealing with religious trauma. So thank you for all the hearts, and thank you, Jenny, for asking the panel. I really am deeply honored that people are going to create maybe a special group for this. I would certainly be a part of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just tap in really quickly and say this. I can't believe I didn't talk about this during my share, but inquiry, which to me is like almost another form of like affinity, right? To the inquiry groups, because it sounds like maybe that also might be a good place to, if people aren't really ready to like branch out and start their own full on meeting, but finding people in inquiry that have like some of the same experiences, getting 3 or 4 people together, that might be another option too. It didn't come up, so I thought I'd mention it.
All right, folks, we are actually doing just about brilliantly on time. We've got just a few minutes left in our formal event, and then after our close, we will we will open up the room and the chat. I know folks have been dying to really actually connect and communicate with each other. We did keep this event unusually locked down to keep the room safe. So we really appreciate everyone's understanding and patience today. Sorry, I'm getting back to, it's like, do I know? Okay, so we will be sharing resources on how to find and start affinity and identity meetings. And then I do want to just mention a couple things, promote some events and RDG news in general. I'll drop some links because I actually have them on the thing. One of them, of course, we opened up regional membership signups so that folks can learn how to sort of strengthen and empower their areas, regions, communities. There's that link right there. In terms of events, we've got the upcoming Outreach Town Hall. Super excited, guys. We are doing some really exciting things with, sorry. Oh my God, Jenny, you find your words. It's hospitals and institutions, treatments and corrections, hospitals and institutions. We're doing some really exciting work. Actually, Mikey, if you, I don't know if you want to boost the town hall at all. No obligation there. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm stumbling. Like I said, this event did get me a little emotional, folks. So I'm admitting that I'm trying to regulate right now, being real open with everyone. We're getting through to the end of it. All right, and then we've got the annual meeting coming up. So anyone who's been getting the last events emails, I screwed up the times for the annual meeting, the global times. So please note, and the website is correct, the flyer is correct, and I will say right now, annual meeting is Saturday, May 9th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. BST, 6 a.m. AEST on May 10th. All right, so just ignore the email you got yesterday about that. Although pay attention to everything else about all the other events, including the 2026 summit coming up July 16th through 19th in Charlotte, North Carolina. Dropping that link right here too. Okay. And with that, I think we are pretty much, yeah, we're getting to the end. We've got some more questions that I'm going to drop into the chat after the end of this official meeting, because I think that the community will have some answers, or there's some common questions across different people. I can actually say I don't have the answer to a couple of them, so it may be better for chatting. So I sped through. I gave myself more time for the announcements that I needed, and that's because I talk very fast. But let's go ahead and close out with the dedication of the merit, which, Mikey, can I ask you to get that on screen? My tech literally failed last second. My hero. And I think, Karen, if you're here, I'd love to hear dedication of merit out of the United Kingdom.
I'm here. Thank you. Does anyone have a bell handy?
I do, and I have turned on my sound.
Thank you.
Oh, see, I was like, do I ring you in for this? No, right?
Refuge does not arise in a particular place, but in the space within the goodness of our hearts. When this space is imbued with wisdom, respect, and love, we call it Sangha. We hope that the pain of addiction, trauma, and a feeling apart actually leads us back towards the heart, and that we might understand compassion, wisdom, and change ever more deeply. As we have learned from practice, great pain does not erase goodness, but in fact informs it. So may we make the best use of this practice, and whatever freedom arises from our efforts here today. May this be a cause and condition for less suffering and more safety in our world.